In this video, I'm going to show you how to record and edit using a multi-camera setup in Camtasia and some best practices to get the best results. This is great if you have multiple cameras and you want different angles of yourself, or maybe you're recording a video podcast type interview with multiple camera angles, or maybe you have a top-down camera shot of you writing on a whiteboard on your desk. You can have as many different camera angles as you like and edit them all together in Camtasia. Let's get into it. So why might you want to do multi-camera or multi-angle recording? Let me show you 4 examples of why you might want to. Let me just draw a little grid here. And the first one I'm going to call the interview. Okay, now the interview, so you probably have 2 people. So let's go person 1, say they're sitting here, and we have a person 2 sitting here. And now in a typical interview scenario, you may have one camera, call it over here, C1, pointing directly at person 1. And then you could have a camera that is focused on person 2 only. And then even you could have a third camera that is maybe set back a little bit and can capture the entire interview. Okay, so that would be the interview scenario. And in that scenario, you would also want to consider lighting and audio. So for instance, you may want to have, let me just change colors here. You may want to have a microphone for this person, microphone for this person. They may be facing each other. A typical podcast setup may have the microphone right in the shot, or you could use a boom arm to have the microphones overhead. And then lighting, you would probably want to have perhaps a light over here, one over here, you know, shining on the subjects like this, and maybe even one up here, up high, so it's out of the shot, and you may even want to have one here. Okay, so that would be a typical interview setup, 3 cameras on 2 people. Next, let's change colors here. Let's go with red. Maybe you want to have a multi-camera solo setup. So in that case, you would just have one person down here. Let's just call this solo. Okay, one person. And then you would have perhaps a camera here focused directly on the person. And then you could have another one over here, say, off to the side. Kind of like what I'm doing now. I have this camera here and I have another camera over there taking a different angle, and you can switch between the 2 angles. Okay, in this setup, you would probably only need one microphone for yourself, and that could be anywhere up high or in the shot. And then you'd also want to probably light yourself up from this side, also from this side, and then probably one on the top back. Lighting is typically up a little bit and off to the side, especially if you have glasses. You don't want to light directly into your glasses, or you could get the glare like that. You could probably see it, or this way. I don't know if that works or not, but yeah, so that's a typical setup for solo, why you might want to have 2 cameras. So let's switch colors again. All right, come on, kitty, let's go. Actually, let's just stay with the black. And multicam solo with a top-down shot. So this is similar to what I just did there. So we'll call it solo plus top-down. Okay, so again, you'll have one person like this. And then you would probably have, let's say that person, like in this case, I've got a desk here and I've got a top-down shot from this camera up here. So let's put a desk like that. Okay, and I'm going to have camera 1 here. So the regular shot like this, camera 2 off to the side. And then we have camera 3 here would be a top-down shot, okay? And then the same thing for the lighting would be similar. You'd have one over here, and then one at the back, which I also have one at the back here. I've got a very, I've got a cat that wants my attention. Why don't you stand there? Okay. So the last scenario would be solo plus top down plus screen recording. Okay, so in that case, you may have, so you've got, let's say you're here, person one, you've got a desk like this, you've got a camera one up here like this, you've got camera two like this, and you have camera three as your top-down camera focused on whatever you're doing on your desk. Then let's say you also have a laptop here, and we'll call this screen one. Okay, so you may have your computer on your desk and you may be demonstrating some software as well. So you'd want to capture that as well. And then for this case, again, you'll have your lights here, and then probably up here. And that is pretty much exactly what I have set up now. So with that said, let's go back to the editing desk and edit this video. Okay, so the recording is all finished, and now we're going to edit this into a video in Camtasia. One thing I should have noted is that the first thing you want to do before you even record is you want to decide on what size video you want to make. So in my case, I'm going to make a 1080p video, so 1920 by 1080. But what I did is when I recorded on the cameras, I set both of those cameras to record in 4K. Okay, and the reason I did that is because if ever I want to zoom in on any of the shots, if I've got a 4K recording, I can actually zoom in to 200%, and then what's left would be the same resolution as a 1920 by 1080 screen. Okay, so I can zoom in 200% to a 4K video and not lose any quality if my final video is going to be 1080p. So that's the first thing. I set both of my headshot cameras to record in 4K, and I also recorded in 4K from my iPhone, the top-down shot. Although that probably isn't going to be necessary, because I think what I'm going to do with that one, if I don't show full screen, I'm probably going to size that down and put it into the corner of one of my videos. So you do want to think ahead in terms of what your final video is going to look like, and try to think of, okay, what shots might I want to zoom in on? And for the most part, that might be the headshots. You're probably not going to zoom in on a top-down shot. I suppose you might. But anyways, I have the option now because I filmed all three in 4K. So once your recording is all done, you want to copy all of the files over to your computer. So to demonstrate, I'm going to show you my file system here. So you also want to be organized when you do this, because things could get confusing. Both of my main cameras are Sony cameras, and just the way they record, they record. The file names are just numbers, so it's hard to keep track of what they are. And if you don't organize them and rename the files before you bring them into Camtasia, things could get pretty confusing. So this is what I did. So this one here, we've got Cam 1 Final, and we have Cam 1 Setup. So that's my camera number 1, my main shot. And the setup file, as you can see, it's much smaller. Cam 1 Setup is only 125 megabytes. Cam 1 Final is 4 gigabytes. The setup was just to make sure my, I was framed properly in the screen. So I did a little video, and then I took a look at it just to make sure I was framed properly in the screen. And then Cam 2 Final is right here. That was the alternate shot of the camera. Intro and test. So the intro is actually the intro. I've already filmed that. You've just watched it in this video, so that might get kind of confusing. We're not going to use that in this part of the demonstration. Top-down final. So again, I had a top-down setup. That's just setting up the framing. I wanted to make sure everything looked good. And then this is my final for the top-down. And then we've got the audio. Again, the intro, we're not going to use that in this demonstration, but multicam audio, that's the main audio. I actually captured that in the computer, right? So I didn't have to bring it into the computer. It was already in the computer. I used Adobe Audition to record the audio from my mic. Okay, and I've appended the file name with _processed because I've already done some processing to the voice to make it sound better. So those are the files we're going to bring into Camtasia. So let me just move this off of the screen. And now let's start bringing these in. Oh, the last thing, so this is my Camtasia file. This is the file that was created when I did my recording. So when I did the recording, I started record on all 3 cameras, okay, and also in Adobe Audition for the audio. And I also started recording in Camtasia, the screen recording, okay? Now, I didn't do anything on the screen in this sample. I probably should have. So this is going to look like just a static image at the end there. You can see I moved the mouse. But for the most part, all I did is I captured the screen and I captured the audio through Camtasia, through the same mic, okay? And that's going to be handy because that will allow me to sync this to everything else. It'll allow me to sync the screen recording to everything else I'm about to bring in, okay? So these two we want to keep them together, all right? I'm not going to group them just yet. I probably could, but I'm just going to leave them like this so you can see everything. So now let's start bringing in the files. So the first one I'm going to bring in is audio, the multicam audio. Let's just bring that in and drop it right down here. Okay, and as you can see, it's an audio file, and we can see the waveforms. Next, I'm going to bring in the camera number 1 final, right here. Then I'm going to bring in camera 2 final. I'm just clicking and dragging from my file manager, and if you, or Finder, because this is a Mac, and if you do that, if you just drag it directly to the timeline, the files will automatically show up here in the media bin. Okay, so there's my 2 camera angles, and the last one is the top-down shot, top-down final. We'll drag that one in. There we go. So now we've got all of our files in here, and as you can see, actually, the top-down shot, it's rotated. I'm going to want to rotate that. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. We'll just rotate that, and that should snap into place right there. Okay, and I'm going to make this full screen. Okay, now we want to sync these all up. And the way you do that is by matching up these audio waveforms. Okay, and then as you get it close, you would play it a little bit just to make sure everything sounds right. And just with a little bit of trial and error, you can get it all synced up. So let's go ahead and look for the one that's probably furthest out here. Let's zoom in a little bit and let's start syncing these up. So I can tell by the look of these waveforms that that's looking like it's pretty much synced up. So now with this one, let's do the same thing. Okay, it looks like that fits there. And then this one, it fits there. I'm not too worried about what the videos look like here at this point. I just want the audios to sync up. Now, got to be careful with this last one. Remember, this audio and this screen, they have to be moved together. So it might make more sense to group it. Let's just right-click this and click on Group. Can I do that? Right-click, Group right here. Okay, I was concerned that maybe the audio waveforms would not be visible when I grouped it, but they are, so no problem there. Okay, let's move this. And it looks like, so I should probably turn off timeline snapping because I don't want that to mess up my syncing ability. And now that we have it all close, let's zoom in on the timeline and make some final adjustments and get it even closer. Okay, you want to get it as close as possible before you play it so it doesn't sound too garbled. Let's just see what that sounds like.
So why might you want to do multi?
Okay, a lot of echoing, and that's because it's not perfectly synced up. Let's zoom in a little bit more, or a lot more. Okay, let's just work with this section here. I didn't need to move the playhead there, but actually I'm looking over here. Looks like a good place to look to get things synced up. And it's most important that any parts that have my face in the video, so camera shots, they are the most important to get synced up with the audio. It's not as important to get the screen recording or the top-down shot perfectly synced, just because you can't see my face, so you can't see if my mouth is out of sync with the audio, right? So it's not as, you want to get it obviously close so that what I'm doing in those scenes makes sense with the audio, but it's not as critical as the headshots, the front-on shots. So let's just see what this sounds like.
So why might you want to do multicam record?
Okay, that to me sounds really good. Okay, you may have to make some final adjustments a little later on, but let's zoom back. Okay, and let's just kind of, I like to call this trim the fat. I want to get a nice cut at the beginning, after which everything is the good copy, and then I'll cut everything at the end. Actually, if I look at the end, see, it looks like I left the top-down shot, my iPhone, I left it recording. I forgot to press stop on the recording of that one. So let's just trim that one all the way back here. Again, I don't have timeline snapping on just yet, or right now, so that's fine. Let's listen to the beginning of this. I think this first part is a mistake in the audio, but let's just listen to this.
So why might you want to do multicam recording?
Yeah, so that was a mistake, so I'm going to delete all that, and I can delete everything before that. Okay, so let's just zoom in here. It looks like the good copy is probably going to start around here somewhere. So let's put the playhead there. We'll highlight everything. I'll press the S key for split, and I'm just going to delete all of that. And let's zoom out. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to pull this back to the beginning. Okay, so now we have a nice start to our video. Okay, now here's another tip. So obviously you can't see my face because the top-down shot is on the top. That's what we see first. And I did organize this. I just didn't bring these in willy-nilly. I actually put some thought into the way I wanted to do this. The way I typically organize videos like this, the bottom track will be the audio typically. So this one right here is out of place. This is my screenshot one, if you can remember. I grouped it with its audio. Then I have the audio. You can see it's written audio processed. That is the audio. I typically like that being the bottom track. Or if I have background music, then the background music will be at the bottom, and then the voiceover. Okay. And then the next one I want to put just above the voiceover is the main shot. The shot that's going to be, I call it A-roll, right? The main headshot where most of the time that's what's going to be in the video. This next one, the camera 2, that was the one that was off to the side. It's the one I wasn't ever really looking at. I mean, you can look at the second angle if you want, or if you're doing an interview, then you know, one shot might be on one person and the other shot on another person. But regardless, I like to put one of the main ones that I'm going to be showing most of the time at the bottom of the visuals. Okay, so right above the audio. Next, above that, I put the secondary angle shot. And then finally, at the very top, I put the top-down shot. Now, the top-down shot is a little bit different because, well, there's two ways I can display that part of it, and I have to think about what I want this video to look like. I may show it full screen from time to time, like when I'm actually writing. Okay, I may show this full screen, but in other cases, I may make that a little bit smaller, and maybe it's picture-in-picture, right? Or maybe it's a little smaller, and then my face is picture-in-picture off to the other side. So I can make all those decisions later, okay? I'm going to get to that towards the end of this video. So I did put some thought into it. That's the way I like to organize these. Now, in order to make our first pass edit through all of this, to cut out all the mistakes and to make sure the narrative makes sense, I have to be able to see my face, okay? And I can't with this one on top. So this is what I like to do. There's two things you can do, and I'll tell you what I prefer. One thing you could do is you could make this one, this top-down one, smaller, okay? I could just put this up in the corner, and then as I'm going through the edits, right, everything would make sense, and I can still cut everything that I want to, Okay, I can't just hide this track, right? Because then when I go to make a cut, for example, I won't be able to cut this one, and I need to be able to cut everything at the same time in order for everything to stay in sync. All right, so let me unhide that again. So that's one thing I can do. It's not my favorite thing, but it is something, okay? Because in this case, I think I'm going to be showing this full screen a lot, so I'm going to leave it full screen. The second thing you can do, and it's my preferred way to deal with this, is to bring the opacity of that one down, okay? Bring it down so that you can still kind of see it, but the main thing you're looking at is the video underneath. Okay, so I can still kind of see what I'm writing there. Okay, but what I mainly see is this next track. And just to further this along, I also reduce the opacity of this one. And the reason that is because it's actually my main headshot that I want to edit off of. Okay, so with this track highlighted, let's go ahead and bring this opacity down as well, to a point where I can still see what's going on back there, but mainly I'm looking at this shot, okay? Okay, and if I just play this a little bit, you'll get the idea.
Examples of why you might want to. So,
okay, so that's the idea. So if I think the syncing of the audio is good here, I can remove the bad audio and just keep the one that I want to keep. Okay, so let's just check this one last time.
Of why you might want to.
Okay, that one looks like it's perfectly in sync. Let me just hide that one for a second, and I wanna see if it looks like I'm in sync with this shot.
So first, let me just draw.
That looks fine too. So those are the two important ones. They look like they're in sync. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the audio of all of the cameras that I don't want to keep, and I only want to keep the good audio that I recorded in Adobe Audition. Okay, so Adobe Audition was this one here, okay? And in fact, before I remove the other ones, let's go ahead and rename these tracks. That'll also help. Another tip, rename the tracks to help you stay organized. So this is voice, okay? This one is screen. This one is cam 1 for camera 1. This is cam 2, and this is top down. Okay, and I'll just move that like that. Okay, so the voice is the one I want to keep. So I am going to highlight these other three here, right click, and silence audio. So that gets rid of the audio of those camera shots. And now I'm also going to go in here. I'm actually going to ungroup this now. Ungroup. Okay, so that's this one and this one, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete the audio from that one. Okay, so I don't need that. Okay, so now let's right click and remove all empty tracks and make sure my labeling is good. Screen, voice, cam 1, cam 2, top down, all looks good. Let's just play this. So first, let me just draw. And that audio sounds great. Now let's go ahead and make our main edits. Okay, so go right back to the beginning, and I'm going to go ahead and edit out the bad part. So that just, I'm going to zoom in, okay, and I'm going to play.
So why might you want to do multicam record?
Okay, that was a mistake.
So why might you want to?
I can tell by looking at that, that's also a mistake.
So why might you want to?
And this might be the good one.
Let me show you 4 examples of why you might want to.
No, I think I wanted to keep this back here. Let me zoom in a little bit further.
So why might you want to do multi-camera or multi-angle recording?
Okay, I'm going to keep that. So with the playhead there, it's important to highlight everything, okay? And then S, I'll highlight all that, delete it, hold Shift, and bring this back to the beginning. I believe this is our start now.
So why might you want to do multi-camera or multi-angle recording? Let me show you what I think are the 4 ways that I might be one.
Oh, mess that up.
Let me show you 4 examples.
Okay.
Angle recording.
highlight all that, S for split, S for split again, delete, shift, pull back.
Angle recording.
Most of the videos that I make, I usually do a lot of edits. I do a lot of cuts. This example, there won't be nearly as many cuts because it's like a tutorial, and I don't want to cut out the places where I'm actually writing things down. So for the most part, there won't be a lot of cuts. I don't want to bore you by going through all of the cuts and editing all of this. You get the idea. Let me just finish editing all this, and I'll speed it up so you don't have to watch all of it, and then we'll pick it back up. Another tip is you could use the J, K, and L keys. So if you use the L key, that'll speed up the playback 2 times, and as long as you're speaking slowly enough in the video, that's a way to speed up your editing. Okay, and now we're at the end of the first pass edit, and I'm just going to stop it here and press the S key to split and delete the end. So there is our first pass edit. So now the next step is we want to decide when to show each camera shot, okay? So that's going to involve going through all of this again and then making the decisions as you play the video as to when you want to switch, okay? When you want to change views.
So why might you want to do multi-camera or multi-angle recording? Let me show you 4 examples of why you might want to.
Okay, so at this point I want to make the decision, am I just going to show myself, or do I also want to show that I'm about to draw on the desk? I think I want to show that I'm going to draw on the desk, okay? So there's a couple ways you can show this. You can start off full screen, just you, and then do a hard cut to the version of just the top-down shot. That's one thing you can do. Or you can start right off with the picture-in-picture, or you can animate to that state, okay, from full screen to a picture-in-picture. So you want to make that decision first. I like the idea of picture-in-picture, and then we can kind of switch back and forth. So let me go ahead and design that with these first clips right here. Okay, so let's highlight this, and let's make this a little bit smaller. Okay, and I'm going to hold the shift and drag it over to the other side. Actually, no, I think it makes sense to be on this side because I have the like the markers and whatnot on this side. Okay, now let's go ahead and with these 2 selected, I'm going to drag them over smaller like this. I'm gonna want to crop them in as well. And I'm editing both of these views at the same time. Remember, that's camera 1 and camera 2, okay? Because I'm gonna wanna switch back and forth between those, but for the most part, they're always gonna be in the same state, whether they're, you know, in picture-in-picture or full screen. But I typically will want to edit both of them together. Okay, so I've made it smaller like this. I'm now going to crop in like this. I'm holding the Option key on a Mac, be Alt on a PC. Maybe like that. Let's take canvas snapping off so I can dial this in. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to hold Shift. Oh, you see what happened there? It actually grabbed the one beneath it. I don't want that. So for the moment, I might want to hide that and just grab those 2 and just drag this over to the edge like that. Now let's unhide that. Okay, and now actually let's, I'm going to bring the opacity back up on that so you can see it. And at this point, since I've decided I want to go picture-in-picture, the smaller version of myself, and then the top-down shot is going to be the larger one, I want to actually change the orientation of these, change the position of these tracks. I want to drag this top-down one and put it beneath my face here. So easy way to do that is simply click and drag the track and move it down like that. Okay, and that does it. Okay, now let's go ahead and select both of these and let's add some effects to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and go in Visual Effects. Let's go ahead and do some corner rounding. I'll click and drag that. Actually, let's drag it right down here to those two. Okay, let's come over to Properties and change the radius. I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and bring a, where is the border? Here it is. Drag the border property down to both of those. Okay, and let's increase the thickness of the border. Notice how it's changing the thickness of the border around everything, include like not the rounded corners. The way you fix that is you just click this Use Alpha here, and now you're messing with just the corner radius. Okay, I think that looks good right like that. Okay, and then finally I also like to put a drop shadow on all of that. So let's go and find that here, click and drag it down to these two. Okay, that's the drop shadow. Let's modify the offset a little bit, maybe make it a little blurrier. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, and now let's go ahead and make some modifications to this one. This is the top-down shot. So same thing, I'm going to go ahead and put rounded corners on that. Change the radius. A border. Change the thickness. Click Use Alpha. That looks good. And let's also put a drop shadow there. And this is actually hard to see because of the background. Let's hide the screen and let's change the background. In fact, let's add another track here, insert track above, and let's go ahead and grab a dynamic background. So if we go to Media and the Camtasia assets, scroll down to dynamic backgrounds, let's just grab this one here and throw that in there. Okay, let's actually stretch this out over the entire project. Okay, and let's zoom back in. Okay, notice how now I can unhide this the screen, but notice how the screen is actually beneath the background. I'm not going to want to do that. If I ever want to show the screen, I want the screen to be above that as well. And in fact, I may want to have the screen properties be the same as the properties I've just set for the top-down shot, so it also would fit within this area here. Okay, so but now that I see that, I want to move this over off the edge a little bit. So let's click and drag that like that. And these top two, let's click and drag them over a little bit as well. And maybe even, oh no, that positioning is probably pretty good. Okay, so now let's just see what that looks like.
So why might you want to do multi-camera or multi-angle recording? Let me show you 4 examples.
Okay, so that looks good. Now, if I want to just copy that over to everything else, copy those effects, it's very easy to do. You can see all these effects here. You can simply highlight them all, holding down Shift, okay? Control C, and then put your playhead over here, Control V. Okay, and then the same thing with properties. Let's right-click, copy properties, right-click, and paste properties. Okay, now that did not change the opacity, so let's bring the opacity back up. And there we go. And that is the second shot. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with the main shot. We'll highlight all these, copy them, and paste them here. And then we will right-click and copy properties and paste them there. Okay, so now both of those shots are there inside that. If you want to hide this one, then you can see that main one. Okay, and I see there's a problem here with the way that the corner rounding was applied. That one is okay, but this one is not. So let's go ahead and fix that. Sometimes it matters the way that you, the order that you copy and paste these things. So let's go ahead and remove the border. Okay, the drop shadow is fine. If I then go ahead and here, let's zoom back in here. So it's the border that I removed. Let's click the border and paste it here. There, I think that's fixed now. Okay, so that's good. So now let's go ahead and uncheck that. So this is what we've got. So one thing I noticed, I actually didn't copy and paste over the settings for the top-down shot. Now, you can avoid all this copying and pasting of effects and properties if you apply them to everything before you make your cuts. It really depends on the final outcome that you're looking for, but this works too. It just might take a little bit longer. So, but all I got to do is, let's see what we have in here. Let's highlight all of these properties. We'll copy and we'll paste them in here. The properties as well. Copy the properties. The properties is like the size and the scale and location. Right click, we'll paste the properties here. Okay, there you go. I see the border got messed up again, so let's take the border out. Right, so the corner rounding is applied first. And then we'll just copy the border and paste the border over here. That worked fine. Okay, so I think that's good. I don't think I'm happy with the centering or the positioning of this camera shot. Camera 1 shot seems to be good. I'm right in the middle of the shot there. That's fine. Oh, actually, I kind of tend to go off like that, but that's okay. That's when I do that, I can switch to the other angle, right? Like at that point, I may want to switch to this angle. Okay, but let's leave it on this angle here. I want to modify the positioning a little bit. So I'm actually going to highlight both of these. Okay, and I'm going to click on crop. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to move this. I think to there, maybe even up a little bit. Okay, and I may also want to zoom in. Okay, I think that's probably good. So let's just see what that looks like. Let's hide this. Oh, I see the opacity. Let's hide this. That's the top one. The opacity, I did not bring that up here. Let's bring that up. Okay. So that looks good all through there. If I hide this, that angle looks good too. So now let's go ahead and actually set this up the way we want. So this first shot, I'm going to delete this because I want to show the one below. Okay, so watch this.
So why might you want to do multi-camera or multi-angle recording? Let me show you 4 examples of why you might want to.
Okay, and even that part, I think I want to keep the first view.
Of why you might want to.
So at that point, I'm going to bring this over here so I'm still on the first angle.
Of why you might want to. So first, let me just draw a little grid here. I've got...
Basically, you're going to keep this camera 1 all the way through, and you're going to cut out camera 2 whenever you don't want camera 2 and you want to show camera 1. So you get this effect here.
Want to. So first, let me just draw a little grid here. I've got 4 scenarios I want to show you. So first of all, let's go with...
Okay, and at this point, I'm going to put that camera back in place.
Green. And the first one I'm going to call the interview. Okay, now
So now I'm addressing the audience again, so I'm going to go back to the main camera. Let's cut it here. And actually I didn't. I went right back to drawing. So at this point, I can actually, if I want to, I can actually cut everything and go full screen on the drawing. Okay, so the way you would do that is I'm going to cut this one as well. Let's drag that back here. Okay, everything is still synced, so we don't have to worry about that. But now we only see this. Okay, but when I cut to this, I'm going to want it to go full screen without the borders and zoomed in and all that stuff. So the way to do that is you want the playhead to be right, you want the cut to be at the same place as this one. So if we can drag this back, this is a little trick, double click here, that puts you at the very beginning of this. So with it there, I'm going to highlight the top down shot, S to split, so I've got a new shot here. Let's click this out of the way again. And now with this top down shot, so all of these properties and effects are set up for this kind of off to the side view of the top down shot. Okay. If I only want to go full screen for a little bit, I'm not going to change the properties for all of this. I want to identify how long I want to go full screen for, and then find out where I want to stop that and going back to here. And at that playhead, I'm gonna split it there. So let's just go ahead.
Probably have two people. So let's go person one, say they're sitting here, and we have a person two.
So all through this, I'm going to want.
And now in a
full
typical
screen.
interview scenario, you may have one camera, call it over here, C1, pointing directly at person one, and then you could have a camera that is focused on person two only, and then even you could have a third camera that is maybe set back a little bit and can capture the entire interview.
Okay, and at that point, I think is where I want to stop the full screen. So let's go ahead and split that there. I'm going to drag both of these over, basically cutting out that section of them. But I'm clicking and dragging the ends so that everything else remains in sync. Now let's put my playhead here, and we're going to play with this one here. And all I want to do now is I'm going to bring this arrow up, and I'm going to delete the border, the drop shadow, the corner rounding, and with it highlighted, I'm going to go back to the select icon, and I am going to turn my canvas snapping on, and I'm just going to make this full screen. Okay, so this is what we get.
Okay, now the interview, so you probably have two people. So let's go person one.
Okay, and then we're going to play all the way through that, and then it's going to end up like this.
And can capture the entire interview. Okay, so that would be the interview scenario, and in that scenario.
Okay, and at this point, let's say I wanted to go full screen with this part, I could just highlight that one. Actually, let's go with the main view. So this one, I'm going to get this out of the way. Okay, and at this point, for a little bit, I'm going to talk with myself full screen. So let's identify how long I want to do that for.
You would also want to consider lighting and audio. So.
Okay, and at that point, I'm going to go back to this view. So let's split that there. Okay, and for this section here, I want to be full screen with my face. So let's go ahead and delete these effects. You can either do it by highlighting them and hitting the delete key there, or with the clip selected, you can come over to properties and just X to delete the drop shadow, the corner rounding, and the border. It's another way to do it. Okay, and then we want to go full screen with that shot. Again, we don't have to worry about what's underneath it. We're going to hide it. Okay, so with this selected, I want to, let's just come up here and go to position. We'll zero that out. Okay, and we will zero out the scale. Oh, I filmed myself at 4K, right? So 50% scale is what I want for this. And I did some cropping as well. So let's undo the cropping that I did. Like this, and like that, and like that. Okay, and so now we will end up, let's just see what this little sequence looks like.
Capture the entire interview. Okay, so that would be the interview scenario, and in that scenario, you would also want to consider lighting and audio. So
at this point, we maybe want to go to that view. Okay,
and audio. So, for instance, you may want to have.
And like that. And you just continue editing that way throughout the whole project. And that is how you edit multi-camera video. Do you want more tips like this? Let me know in the comments below. Or come join me on Tuesdays in my live stream. I live stream every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern here on YouTube, sharing my screen and doing how-to tutorials. I show you how I make my videos and I answer any questions you have live. So if you're looking to level up your videos, join me on Tuesdays. I'm Rob and I'll see you in the next video or in a live stream. I'll see you soon.